You're welcome back to Echo Ielts series, and this is the second lecture in the series. I am of the assumption that my listener is a human being. So, kindly permit me to talk to you like a human being because today we're going to be discussing grammar and ideation. So, let's assume that the English language is a building. Let's say something like this. Which kind of house is this one again? So, it's going to be made up of blocks, isn't it? The building blocks of this building is what I say the building blocks of this building. That is tautology, isn't it? Okay. The bricks or the blocks that is used in making this building is what we call ideas. Hmm? And that is what you will study under ideation. But the arrangement of these ideas to make sense, to make this building, is what we call grammar. And this is very important in all four tests. However, it is more important in your speaking and writing test because this is the place where you will be required to generate your own ideas and to arrange those ideas to make sense. Is that clear? My name is Dr. Victor Atux, and I believe you are that wonderful student out there expecting me to give you the formulas for your IELTS journey. I will not disappoint you. You don't have to trust me, but I trust you. So, our focus for today will include an understanding of the laws that govern grammar. Then we will discuss the active and the passive voice. What are they and where can we use them? And finally, we will talk about how to generate ideas while you are in the hall. I'm still of the assumption that you are someone out there that needs this topic so that you will not make all those little errors that will be subtracting your marks so that at the end of the day you will be able to come out with your desired band score. So let us talk about the basic laws of grammar, the basic ones. There are several laws of grammar, but I think we will handle the basic laws of grammar. I learned them in GSS 1. That is the first class in high school, the equivalent of a high school. And it has stayed with me ever since. And I'm about to download them into you. I believe you're ready to upload them into your own uh, English journey. If you don't, -1. Okay, so let's define what is grammar. What is grammar? Like I said earlier on, that is the rules that governs what the rules that govern sentence word construction, sentence construction. So if you have one word and you want to join it to another word, then another word, the laws that govern this construction is what you call grammar. So why do we have to put the young before the athlete? Why not the athlete young? And after saying the young athlete set a new record, is it set or sets? Is it set or sets? After this whole class, you will give me the answer. Is it sets a new record or set a new record? It's okay. Let's go. So, the 7 laws of grammar, which are the basic laws. The first one, you need to differentiate between subjects. Now, it's very important to state that when you want to write a sentence is made up of a subject, a verb, and an object. Let's say, for instance, Victor eats eba, and I love eba a lot. So Victor is the subject, is the one doing the action. Eats is the action, the verb. You learned that in secondary school, didn't you? Then eba is the object. So we are saying here that this subject can either be a noun or a pronoun. You know what a noun is? A name of a person, animal, places, or thing. Or it can either be a pronoun where you have he, she, it, they, and all the other ones. So we are saying that also that apart from that, the subject can be singular and the subject can be plural, and that is where our focus is. So if the subject is singular, we call it singular subject, and if the subject is plural, we call that plural subject. So I want to give you example of singular subjects, then plural subjects. So the singular subject will include just one noun, like the name of one person, like Victor, like Ejura, like Lagos, like tomato, just one. So, and the pronouns will include he, she, it. So, but for plural subject is when you have two or more nouns, and when you use the pronoun we, they, these are what plural. These are things I believe you know already. Then, the most important one is the one that is written in red here. I and you, though are singular subjects, they behave like what? Plural subjects. When you're talking about the relationship between a subject and a verb. So let's get some example of singular subjects and their plural forms. So a child is a singular subject and the plural form is children. Man, men. Food, feet. Woman, women. He, she, it, they. Isn't it? So is it singular or is it plural? The subject, verb, object relationship. Is it singular or is it what? Is the subject, is it singular or plural? Because that will determine what the nature of the verb. Very, very important. So the next law states that if you have a singular subject, if you have a singular subject, the verb here must or will carry an X in front. Don't worry about the object. It's between subject and verb. The subject-verb agreement is the most important here. So the verb will carry an X. So you can say Fatima goes to school. You can see goes. Not Fatima go to school. Does it sound well? It doesn't sound fine. So when you want to say, you can say Mama cooks, not Mama cook our food. Is that clear? It's very important. Anytime you have a singular subject, one person, you see he eats his meal. not he eats. Exactly, because that x must be added to the verb that follows the singular subject. So remember that singular starts with x, and because of that, the verb of it must carry what? An x. So what we are actually saying is that singular verbs usually carry an x. That's just a summary of the whole thing. Singular verbs, that singular subject, so there must be singular verb, and the singular verb must carry an x. The opposite is what you find in the third law. And the third law says that if we have a subject and the subject is in the plural form, like Fatima and Lovett, these are plural already. It says that the verb, you should not add an x. So Fatima and Lovett go to school is the correct thing. Mama and Papa cook our food is the correct thing. Samuel and Timothy talk to the teacher is the correct grammatical construction. So the plural verbs, plural does not start with an s, so will not carry an x. So it's very important. And if you say that this is not important, by the time Ielts begin to subtract 1 for each of those mistakes, at the end of the day, under grammar, you end up scoring 0/25. And that would be too bad. That is why we are learning these laws very early. Let's talk about the fourth law that talks about the use of has, have, and had. When you use any of these three verbs, they are talking about possession. Something like he has a car, she has a car. So when you want to use them, remember that has is a singular verb. So use he has a car, she has a car, Ajuma has that, and that. Because if it is singular, you use has. But if it is plural, you say they, or you can say Victor and Lovett have a car. The two of them have a car, but Lovett has a car. Is that clear? When you use the two or use plural, it's have. But when you want to talk about a past participle, that is the one that has happened in the past, you are making a report, you say they had a car. They had a car. So that is that. Let's move on to the next one. The fifth law talks about being. I know so many of you have a problem differentiating when to use being and being. These two is very easy. Remember that this being has an I here, and so that I should tell you that it is, you use it when you making use of is. That is will always come before it. Is, and you know that the past tense of is was. The plural of was is were. And when you're using I, it's very important that you make use of what? You make use of am. I am being, you understand? So when the examples will include he is, you can see that is here. He is being spoken to. They are being, you see, I am being, we were being chased. So being is the continuous tense of be, but the past participle form is the been, boom. And when you want to use boom, you make use of the word have in front. I have been, not he is been. You understand? So let's move on to the next one. You will know the difference now. Let's say been. Been should follow has, have, or had. That is, you are going to have has. You're going to have has, have, and had before you have a bone. So anywhere you have a bone, you is usually preceded by these three uh, verbs. So you now have he has been to Togo because you are using he has. They have been to Togo. You understand? John had. This one is like in the past participle of it. They had been to Zaria. So it depends on which one you want to use because been is the past participle of be. So has, have, and had should precede been, but is, was, where, and should precede, that should come before being. So please don't make that mistake. Okay, finally, the seventh law. When you want to use could, would, or should, these three verbs here, always try as much as possible to follow it with the verb have. I could have sold it. I should have sold it. I would have sold it. You understand that? It's very important that we do this. It's very, very important that we use have with it. And that is the end of this series. I'll be back. You're welcome back from that holy break. I hope you must have taken one or two drinks by now. So let us go straight to the concept of passive and active voice. So, who is passive here and who is active in terms of the voice? One thing I would like you to know is that when you have the subject, verb, object, the subject is doing the verb and is doing the verb on the object. What if we decide to move the other way around, where the object will now move to this position and the subject will now move over to this place? If the subject moves to the right, that is to this other side, we call that the person is now passive. So let's say, for instance, you say Victor eats Eba. So now you want to start with Eba. So you now say Eba was eaten by Victor. You can see that's how we do this. So this particular one now, you're saying Eba, you are now using indirect to speak to me. That indirect is what we call the passive voice. But if you say Victor eats the Eba or Victor eats Eba, you are being active. You are coming directly at me. Just take it that active is direct, passive is indirect. So we have a voice here, and you ask yourself, is it the subject or the verb? Which one came first? If the is it the subject or the object? Which one comes first? Once you discover that it's the subject that comes first, you say the person is having an active voice. But if it is the object that comes first, you say the person has a passive voice. So instead of saying Victor eats Eba, you now say Eba is eaten by Victor, or Eba is being eaten by Victor, depending on which sense you are reporting from. Okay, so let's say, so they say active voice is when a person or a thing tells us what a person or a thing is doing. So There's a subject, there's a verb, and then there's an object, SVO. You still remember SVO? Then for the passive voice, you see, it tells us what is already being done to someone or something. So you see, you now bring the object first, then the verb, of course, and then the subject will be the last. So if you say Anna does what? Painted the house. Anna painted the house. Anna painted the house. So Anna is the one doing the thing. But when you want to talk about, you want to turn it to passive voice, you want to speak indirectly, you say the house was painted by Anna. Exactly. So if you say the teacher always answers the student questions, this time around you start with the student's questions because that is the object. Answers is the verb, always answers. Then I say the students' questions are answered by the teacher. You can see you just turning it upside down. Then all or Ali posted the video online. Ali posted. This is the verb. Ali posted. So if you want to say the video online was posted by Ali. Any way you want to put it, just know how to convert your active voices to the passive formats or the passive forms. I mean, okay. So what is the use of this? Why do I need to learn this? It's very important because when you want to write your formal letters, and you want to write tasks too, you begin to learn the different types of tasks. I will ask you to use a civil language, and the civil language is passive. You know, in the UK Parliament, people don't want to offend. They don't want to offend the people, so they call it a civilized language. When you don't want to offend people, so you try to go through corner. You now use what? Indirect. So that indirect is what we call passive voice, and that passive voice is what we tagged as civil language. So, but for informal letters, where you are you're almost insulting your friends, everything is what? Active. How are you? I hope you are fine. Let's see, Joe, and all those kind of things. Those are active voices. But when you want to speak in passive tone, you said something like, I hope you will be there. You see, the way it's always is just in a civilized manner. But anyway, let's move ahead, and we can come to this particular conclusion on how to make a passive voice out of an active statement. So, how far? I believe they have given you I believe you've gotten the links to the IELTS booklets. If you are registered with Echo IELTS by now, Echo IELTS, we deliver. We deliver like the Hebrew women. So just make sure you just get your links from the Echo IELTS coach, and make sure you do some of the exercises. But before any other thing, try and go through the classes on the respective tests that you will be attempting. So that will be that for that. I want us to go for another break now, and when we are back, we will talk about how to generate ideas. Isn't that cool? You're welcome back, and right away we should dive into the discussion on how to generate ideas. You know, when you're sitting before the IELTS examiner, those scary beings, or you're trying to write an essay, you want to write an essay, or you will need ideas. These ideas you convert to words, and words you use in building sentences. Sentences will be used to build paragraphs. And paragraphs is what will automatically give you that beautiful essay that will give you your desired band score. So let's quickly go into the discussion. It is very important at this stage to state that there is a template for thinking. You don't just think. People don't think in vacuum. They think according to a particular structure. Smart thinkers have a structure. And whenever I think about generating ideas, I talk about the greatest generator of all human beings, and that is what sperm. Sperm is what generated every human being on earth. The sperm goes to meet the ovum, and they have a very fantastic discussion, and boom, there is what? A baby. But we're not talking about our sperm. The sperm we're talking about is an acronym I created. It has been used extensively by my students. If you want to create an idea, you can just reflect on that particular concept using what? Sperm. So what does sperm stands for? S stands for spiritual, P stands for physical, E stands for emotional, R stands for resources. This is financial, and M stands for what? Mental. These are the five divisions, the big divisions in the life of an individual or a society. So if you think along this line, you should be able to come up with an idea. So when I take sperm, it is not this spermatozoa. What I'm talking about is what? This. So I think we should go to see some fantastic example. And for the spiritual, if you're thinking about spiritual, you should think about church. That should also remind you of mosque. And then that should also tell you about what? Tell you about prayers, fasting. That should remind you of what? Worship, offering. You see, these are the ideas that comes under the spiritual. Then under the physical, we talk about, look at road. That should also remind you about what? Bridges. Then it should also tell you about what? Cars. That should tell you about what? Lorries. All those physical things, structures like houses. So those are the physical structures in our environment. You can add trees to this example too. How does this relate to trees too? Don't worry, I'm going there. You're thinking, what is the essence about this? Why is he listening or listening? Don't worry, you will get there. Emotional. When you talk about emotional, you're talking about love, talk about family, talk about fathers, mothers, siblings, you talk about cousins, relatives, you talk about friends. Basically, this talk about friends and family. And so you're trying to relate this particular idea you've been given to talk about or to write about, and you relate it to the emotional sphere of being. Then you talk about then R stands for resources. You can see money here. Ooh, money. And that should remind you about banks. And how do you generate money from industries or from farm? You talk about storage. Storage can also talk about trading, business. How does this relate? So all those things that has to do with money generation, money spending, money storage, and the rest of them will come under what? Resources. Then finally, we talk about mental, and that should remind you about school. Thinking. What else? What else? Tell me. I think that should also talk about. When we talk about school, talking about primary school, secondary school, or the university, and the various higher institutions. You also talking about book writing, reading, knowledge acquisitions, seminars, and the rest of them that will fall under mental association. So you want to take that is how to think. We're going into a much practical example very soon. You can see farming and the rest of them, whatever what I told you earlier on. So let's say, for instance, you asked by your examiner to talk about your examiner is wants you to talk about a town, a town, a town you visited. Hmm? So when you have the town, the first thing you want to ask yourself is, you want to think along this line, the spiritual aspect of that town. Hmm? If you look at, sorry, I'm so sorry about this. I don't know what's happening. So you asked to talk about what? A town. So you want to talk about the uh, the spiritual structures in that town. We want to talk about the physical structures in that town. Also, the spiritual structures in that town. The people are very prayerful. They have a church and two mosques. So that would indirectly tell the listener or the reader that this is most likely a predominantly Muslim community. If you say there are two mosques, and so physical structures will include road, bridges, river, and the rest of them. Do they have a river? You ask yourself. Then emotional, you can say that they are mostly made up of what? The elderly population. Then the resources that are present, you see that the source of livelihood, source of income for most individual living in this particular town is farming and sales of those farm produce. And they make use of physical structures like the train, the mental. You see that we can talk about the school that is owned by the community. Let's say Academy of Ambassadors. I've mentioned the name of our future school. I believe you'll key in. Okay, that is that for that. So what's next? The next thing is for you to write sperm and try and see how many examples. Just pick up a random topic and try to relate them. It doesn't have to contain the spiritual. For example, you asked to talk about an electric appliance. If you're to talk about an electric appliance, now you cannot talk about the spiritual aspect of that electric appliance you love, but it's a physical structure. You see, it's used in. Okay, talk about let's say a heater, and it's a physical structure, so you want to describe it that way. Emotional, you may not have anything to do emotional, but you can talk about the cost of it. You see, I don't know what is happening right away. You can talk about the cost of it. Then mentally, there's nothing actually, but you can say that the resources was used, what the mental aspect, the resources aspect, the use of that resource, which is either for cooking or for any other use. So this is the template upon which you can arrange your thoughts so that you can sound orderly to the examiner that is listening to you or reading your work. I believe this has been a very wonderful session for you, and if it has, remember this: a brain you don't use at home, a brain you don't use at home will not answer you in the hall. So please, the preparation should be done in the house, not in the hall. The preparation should be done in the house so that when you call upon what you have stored up for yourself from the house, you will discover that you will not be counting the ceiling in the hall. Remember, Ielts has an unwritten policy, and that is lack of preparation on your part will never constitute an emergency on theirs. That means that if you do not prepare, they are ready to collect your money as often, as many times as possible. And it is my duty to make sure that you pay that money. That the next one you are going to pay will be the last you will ever deliver your hard-earned resources to these people. I'm not against them, but I, as an activist, will want you to enjoy the money that you have so far to make. What about the emotional trauma? Let's not even go there. Thank you very much. I believe you'll be available in the next class because we are about to enter into the meat of the matter. That listening class is something you cannot afford to miss. Thank you.